Now we're going to start working on our mouse look script. So when I move my mouse along the x-axis, I look left and right. And when I move my mouse along the y-axis, I look up and down. In order to do this, I need to know where on the screen my mouse is. Similar to how we can get horizontal input values, we can also get mouse values. If we go to Edit, Project Settings, Input, you'll see here that we have mouse X and mouse Y values. Along the x-axis, if it's in the dead center, it's 0. If I go to the left, it becomes -1. If I go to the right, it becomes +1. Same for mouse Y along the y-axis. The y-axis becomes 1 as I go up, and -1 as I go down, and 0 in the dead center. Using these values, I can go ahead and add them to my rotation on the player. So here, if I'm going along the x-axis to the left, I want to rotate along the y-axis. So if my mouse is moving left, we rotate along the y-axis to the left. If my mouse is moving y, we rotate along the y-axis on the right. Likewise, to look up and down, we will manipulate the x-axis. If I'm looking up, if I look up, we go negative, and if we look down, we go positive. Okay, so how can we actually make this happen? Well, let's go ahead and create a script for our horizontal axis. So let's go and create a new C# script and call it lookx. Here we have lookx. Go ahead and double click that, open it up. And the first thing we want to do is we need to gain access to that input value. That basically determines where on this horizontal axis our mouse is. If it's in the center, it's 0. If it's to the left, it's -1. If it's to the right, it's +1. So to do that, what we're going to do here is we're going to say, and we want to do it in update because I need to know where my mouse is constantly. Every frame I need to know where the value stands. So here we're going to say float, we'll say mouse X equals the input manager. We're going to get an axis, and the axis we're going to get is mouse X. Now make sure when you're typing mouse X, it's mouse space X because that's how it's written in the input manager. Here we go, float mouse X equals input.getAccess mouse X. Now that I have that value, I basically want to take that value and I want to add it to my rotation. Now we've never really worked with rotations yet. We've used quaternion.identity, which means basically default rotation, don't change it. But what I want to do is I want to basically take this mouse X value and I want to add it to my Y rotation. Now my Y rotation is very special. In Unity, we work with these things called Euler angles. And all an Euler angle is basically a rotation along the y-axis. So when I say transform.rotation.y, I'm getting the rotational value. But what I really want to be changing here is I want to change the value that's rotating along that rotation. And that is the Euler angle. So you don't really have to understand what an Euler angle is. Just know that when we're handling rotations, it uses an Euler angle, which is just the rotation along that axis. So here, the Euler angle is 0, the X Euler angle is 0, and the Y and Z Euler angle is 0. Okay, it's just the rotation along that axis, the value. So what I want to do is I want to take our mouse X and I want to add it to the Euler angle of the Y. So let's go ahead and do that. Float mouse X equals input. I need to get my current Euler angle, and I need to basically assign it a new Euler angle. Similar to how we get our current position and assign it a new position, I need to get my current rotation and assign it a new rotation. So to do that, we're going to go ahead and say transform dot local Euler angles. Now, why can't we do transform dot rotation and assign that a new rotation? And the reason for that is because rotation uses a quaternion, which is just a handful of methods to help us with our rotations. I want to actually change that individual value, and to do that, I have to access the Euler angle. So here we're going to say transform.local Euler angles equals a new vector 3. This is starting to look familiar, right? What do I want to do to the x, you can think, what do I want to do to the x and z values? I want them to stay the same. So I'm going to say here, transform.local Euler angles dot x. The y value, I want it to rotate. So I'm going to say here, I want to say underscore mouse x. However, I want to add to the current value. So I'm going to say transform.local_Euler_angles.y plus my mouse x. Wherever my mouse is on the screen, I'm going to take the current y rotation and I'm just going to add my mouse x to it, whatever that value is. If I'm looking to the left, it's -1, right, 1. 0 would be dead center. Okay, so, and we can't forget about the z. We have to say transform.local_Euler_angles.z. Go ahead and add a semicolon, and we're good to go. Now, some of you guys may also be wondering, why can't I type transform.local_Euler_angles.y plus equals or equals transform.local_Euler_angles.y plus mouse x? Because essentially, that's exactly what we're doing, right? We just want to add mouse x to the y value. The reason why you can't do this is because you can't ignore the x and z values. You can't just hop up and say, I'm going to change one value, but not acknowledge the other two. That's why we have to acknowledge that we're keeping the x where it is, the z where it is, and we're modifying the y. Let's go ahead, save this, and let's head into Unity. Go ahead and run this, and you'll notice based on where your mouse is, you're actually going to go ahead and rotate. And make sure you apply that script. I have nothing selected here. Add your lookx script to your player. Go ahead and run this. And you'll see here, we have a movement system looking left and right. When I go to the left, it moves left. And when I go to the right, it's a positive value moving right. Now, the speed of this is actually pretty good. I'm actually happy with the speed. If we wanted to create a mouse sensitivity system, how could you do it? Well, it's really, really easy. All you would do is you would create a mouse sensitivity variable. So here we would say private float, we'll say sensitivity equals maybe, I'm going to go ahead and set it to 0.0f. Actually, I'm just kidding. I'm going to set it to 1f. If you wanted to increase it or decrease it, you're more than welcome to. And basically what we would do is we would just multiply it in here. So here we say transform.local_Euler_angles.y plus equal or plus mouse x. And what we're going to do next is we're going to do that calculation. So we're going to put it in parentheses. And then we're going to go ahead and multiply this by our sensitivity. And if we save this, and if I were to set my sensitivity to about 5, go ahead and make it a serialized field. You'll see now that my player, we have a sensitivity setting right in here. And if I run this, I'm now looking to the left and right very, very quickly. It's too fast. I can change it in real time. So I can go ahead and make it to about 0.13. And even that's scary fast. So I'm actually going to just set it to 1. And I'm happy with that. But if you wanted to increase it to like 1.1 or 1.2, you'll definitely get a dramatic increase. So you can do whatever you feel is comfortable. For me, it's 1. And let's make sure that actually does work. Yeah. 1 second. Let's make sure that that's not broken. Okay, actually, this might be broken. You'll notice that it's multiplying by 5. And the reason it's doing that, the reason why it's doing that is because I am multiplying it as a whole. The math is incorrect here. We actually don't want to do that. I'm sorry. We actually want to do it the reverse. I want to say, take my y, and I want to add this value, my mouse x multiplied by sensitivity. If you save that, now this will work much better. Go ahead and run this. You'll see here our sensitivity is set to 5, and it's just very quick for me. But if you like that, you're more than welcome to, and I can change this down to 2, and there we go. So for me, my sweet spot is 1. I'm happy with this. I'm going to go ahead and keep it there. But now you know how to create a sensitivity system. So this is moving along the x-axis. What I want you guys to go ahead and try and do is go ahead and move along the y-axis. Now, before I let you go, let's go ahead and clean up this code. This is a long and nasty line of code. There's got to be a better way we can do this, right? Well, this is where we introduce something called temporary variables. Temporary variables store values that you manipulate and then you reassign them. This is a perfect case example for that. For instance, I want to change just one value, which is the y. However, I have to acknowledge these other three values, right? Well, what I can do is I can actually store in a variable called vector3, let's go ahead and say vector3, we'll say new rotation, right? So vector3 new rotation equals my current rotation, which is basically my transform.local Euler angles. So now that my variable new rotation equals my current local Euler angles, I can say new rotation dot y equals, and then basically what I can do is I can just go ahead and say, or I can add my formula, which is basically mouse x times my sensitivity. Now, before I can just stop doing this, we need to actually make use of this new rotation. So what I need to do now is I need to say my current rotation, which is transform.local Euler angles, equals the new rotation. So all I've done is I created a temporary variable that holds my current rotation. I modify the y, and then I assign my current rotation to the new rotation. As you can see here, vector3 new rotation is a local Euler angle, which is just a vector3. I modify the y, I take my current values and I add it and I set it assigned to the new rotation values. So new rotation.y is modified, but new rotation.x and z are the current values of transform.local Euler angles. Temp variables might go over your head a bit, but I promise you with experience and time, you'll get the hang of it and you'll be loving the use case of them. So now how can I make this even better? I can delete this entire line. It's much cleaner, much more readable, and yeah, overall just better. So as a challenge, guys, go ahead and create your mouse look script for going up and down and modifying your X value. And go ahead and see if you can figure out how to make it work with your player. Where are you going to add that script? You will be adding a new script called look Y, but you're going to need to think about how you can add this to your player to avoid any unexpected behavior. So I'll see you in the next video, and we'll go ahead and solve it together.